So Europe's making a pretty huge investment in its defense right now, something like 800 billion euros. That's a lot of money.
It is, yeah, a really significant commitment to modernizing their military capabilities. We're talking about serious upgrades across the board, from air defense systems to next generation armored
Yeah.
vehicles. Oh, and let's not forget about advanced naval
It
platforms.
really does sound like they're building up a powerful military for the future. But, diving into the source material today, it becomes clear that just buying all this fancy new equipment isn't the whole story.
Right, exactly. It's like you can have the shiniest, most high-tech tools, but if you don't have people who know how to use them, well, that's a problem.
A big problem, for sure. And that's where the skills gap comes in, right? I mean, we're
Yeah.
talking about needing a whole new level of expertise to operate and maintain these increasingly complex systems.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. Multi-domain operations, that's like coordinating seamlessly across land, sea, air, you name it.
Yeah.
And then you've got AI, cybersecurity threats that are constantly evolving, and just the sheer complexity of these systems. It's a whole different ballgame compared to traditional military roles.
Yeah, no kidding. And it seems like the traditional ways of training soldiers, just aren't cutting it anymore.
Well, they've served us well for a long time, but the pace of technological change is just so rapid now. It's really hard to keep up.
So what are some of the specific roadblocks that the sources are highlighting here? I mean, why is traditional training struggling to keep pace?
Well, for one thing, it's just inherently slow. Developing new training programs, scheduling these large-scale exercises, it all takes time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And, even when you do get the training going, it's often just not sufficient for these really complex systems. I mean, think about trying to learn how to operate an advanced radar system just by reading a manual.
Yeah, not exactly the same as like getting in there and actually doing it.
Exactly. And then there's the whole issue of high-risk scenarios. You can't exactly simulate a full-blown cyber attack on a live network to see how your team responds, can you?
No way. The risks are just way too high.
Right. And on top of that, you've got this crucial need for multinational cooperation in European defense, which means you need standardized training procedures across different countries. And that's a huge challenge because different nations often have their own ways of doing things.
And then there's the cost, right? Training thousands of personnel across multiple countries. It all adds up.
Oh yeah, the expense can be astronomical. So you put all of this together, and it creates a real bottleneck when it comes to getting personnel ready for these new challenges.
So we've got a clear picture of the problem, but what about solutions? Thankfully, the source material we're looking at today actually offers a potential answer.
Yeah, this comprehensive defense training transformation program announced by EON Reality on April 9th, 2025, they're really positioning this as a game changer for addressing this readiness gap.
That's right. So in this deep dive, we're going to break down EON Reality's program and try to understand how it aims to solve this problem. And we'll explore what this could mean for the future of European defense as a whole. We're going to be digging into the details of their announcement, so buckle up.
Sounds good. Let's get into it. So the core of their solution seems to be this EON XR platform.
Okay, so more than just your average virtual reality system then.
Oh, yeah. Way more. They really highlight its security features, making sure it's robust enough for sensitive military applications. And they're talking about flexible deployment options, so it can be used in all sorts of environments.
Got it. So adaptable and secure. But they also mentioned this text-to-XR conversion technology, which sounds pretty intriguing. How does that work?
So instead of building these complex training simulations from scratch, which can take forever, they're claiming they can take existing military documents like, manuals and protocols and convert them automatically into virtual reality and augmented reality training scenarios.
Whoa. So you're telling me they can just, scan a manual and boom, instant training sim? That sounds like a huge time saver.
It could be, yeah. I mean, imagine being able to instantly update your training materials whenever there's a change in tactics or procedures. That's pretty powerful. And then they're also focusing heavily on these interactive digital twins of all sorts of advanced weapons systems.
Hold on, digital twins. Remind me, what are those again?
So basically, it's like having a virtual copy of a real piece of equipment. So instead of just looking at a picture of, say, a tank or a fighter jet, you have this fully interactive 3D model that you can manipulate and explore.
Right. So you could learn all the ins and outs of a complex system without needing access to the actual physical thing.
Exactly. And they're saying you could access these digital twins on anything from a secure tablet to, AR glasses or a full-blown VR headset.
So lots of flexibility there. And they're also talking about this AI mentorship system. Is that like having a virtual instructor by your side throughout the training?
That's the idea. It would provide personalized guidance, answer your questions, and give you feedback in real time. Kind of like having a dedicated expert available 24/7.
That sounds pretty amazing. I mean, if everyone's getting instruction from the same AI mentor, wouldn't that help standardize training across different units and even different countries?
That's a big part of it, yeah. It could significantly improve interoperability between different forces. I mean, imagine soldiers from, say, France, Germany, and Italy all training together in the same virtual environment with this consistent AI guidance.
That would be a game changer for joint operations for sure. Okay, so we've got the platform itself, but they're also proposing this EON AI Academy for Defense. What's that all about?
So that's where the more structured, formalized training comes in. They're talking about specific academies for different defense domains, air defense, armored warfare, naval operations, cybersecurity, you name it.
So specializing the training.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And they want to use AI-powered assessments to figure out exactly where each individual's strengths and weaknesses are, and then create a personalized learning path for them. So no more one-size-fits-all training.
So it's tailoring the training to each individual's needs, which is a pretty big deal. And they mentioned something about simulating high-risk scenarios in a secure virtual environment.
Right. So you can practice things like responding to a cyber attack or, dealing with a complex malfunction in a critical system, all without any real-world consequences.
And you can do it in a classified setting, which is something you just can't do with traditional live training. It's just too risky.
Mhm.
But are they really claiming that this approach can make personnel ready 4 times faster while also cutting training costs by 60%? Those numbers seem almost too good to be true.
I know, right? But that's what they're projecting. If even a fraction of that is accurate, it would be a huge leap forward. I mean, imagine the resources that could be freed up if training became that much more efficient.
Absolutely. Okay, so what about this EON and Career Guide and Compass? It sounds like they're thinking beyond just initial training.
Yeah, this is more about long-term career development. The idea is to use AI to help military personnel navigate their career paths, identify their strengths, suggest areas for development, and ultimately help them find the roles where they'll be most effective.
So optimizing talent throughout their entire military career, that sounds pretty smart. And it could potentially help with retention too, right? I mean, if people feel like their skills are being utilized and they have a clear path for advancement, they're more likely to stay.
Exactly. Happier and more effective soldiers all around. And then there's this interesting element they call the EON Entrepreneur Guide with EON Vibe Coder.
Yeah, that one caught my eye too.
Yeah.
It seems like it's more about fostering innovation within the defense sector.
Exactly. So the EON Vibe Coder is this tool that lets people create their own custom applications and tools, even if they don't know anything about coding.
Wait, so you're telling me I could create my own, military app without needing to learn how to code?
That's the idea. They want to empower people on the front lines, the ones who are actually using these technologies in the field, to develop solutions to the specific problems they're facing.
That's pretty cool. It's like taking innovation out of the lab and putting it directly into the hands of the users.
Right. It could lead to a much more agile and responsive approach to developing new capabilities. But okay, so we've talked about all these different components. Now the big question is, how do they actually plan to implement all of this? I mean, it sounds pretty complex.
Yeah, and they're saying they can do it in just 90 days?
Yeah.
That seems incredibly fast.
It does. But they're emphasizing this super streamlined partnership model. So EON provides the technology, the methodology, all the technical stuff. And the defense partners like NATO countries and individual military branches, they bring their existing infrastructure, their specific operational needs, and their expertise.
So a true collaboration then. But it sounds like they're not just throwing technology at the problem and hoping for the best. They mentioned an AI-powered needs assessment and curriculum development phase.
Right. So they're using AI to figure out exactly what the training needs are, across all these different defense domains. And then they develop the training curriculum specifically to meet those needs.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like a tailored approach to training.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this multi-channel deployment strategy. I guess that means they're not just thinking about classroom-style training, right?
Oh, definitely not. They're talking about dedicated training centers, integrating XR labs into existing military bases, mobile training units that can be deployed anywhere, distributed training networks that connect people virtually. They're really thinking about how to make this accessible to everyone, no matter where they are.
That's really impressive. They're really covering all the bases. And they seem to understand that this isn't a one-and-done kind of thing. They mentioned capacity building for sustainable readiness.
Right. It's not just about setting up the program and walking away. They want to train military instructors to become experts in using the EON platform and even creating their own training content.
So building that internal expertise so that the program can keep running smoothly, even without EON's direct involvement.
Exactly, and making it self-sustaining.
Okay, so let's get to the bottom line here. What kind of impact are they claiming this program can have? I mean, are there any concrete numbers?
Oh, yeah. They've got a whole list of projected outcomes. Faster qualification times, better knowledge retention, improved interoperability, and even, get this, up to 1.2 billion euros in annual savings across all the participating organizations.
Wow, that's a lot of money. But I guess the real question is, can they actually deliver on these promises?
That's the million-euro question, isn't it? But let's look at some specific examples they've given for how this might work in different areas of defense. So, starting with air defense, they talk about the European Sky Shield Initiative, which is this massive project involving 17 different countries. And they're specifically pointing out the challenges of getting everyone on the same page when it comes to operating these integrated air defense systems.
Right, because you need seamless coordination between different countries' systems if you want this thing to work effectively.
Yeah.
And they're also concerned about countering increasingly sophisticated electronic warfare tactics.
Exactly. So their solution for air defense involves setting up an AI academy focused on integrated air defense operations, running immersive simulations that connect operators from different countries in a virtual environment, and creating these synthetic training environments where they can practice responding to all sorts of complex threats.
So basically giving them a safe space to learn and practice together without the risk of messing things up in the real world. And they're saying this could lead to much faster integration of new capabilities, better coordination between countries, and significant cost savings.
That's the gist of it. Now, switching gears to armored forces, we're talking about over 42 billion euros being invested in next-generation combat vehicles. But all that fancy technology comes with a steep learning curve, especially when it comes to the digital systems and maintenance procedures.
Right. I imagine it's pretty different from working on a tank from say, the 1980s. So what's their approach for training personnel on these new vehicles?
Virtual vehicle training. So basically you have these interactive digital twins of the vehicles that you can learn on. And then they have progressive tactical training scenarios where you start with the basics and gradually increase the complexity. And they also have detailed maintenance simulations where you can practice diagnosing and fixing problems.
So pretty much everything you need to know to operate and maintain these vehicles, all in a safe virtual environment.
Exactly. And they're projecting that this could significantly reduce training time, get crews up to speed much faster, and even improve the efficiency of vehicle maintenance.
Okay, so that's air defense and armored forces.
Right.
What about naval operations? They mentioned something about a 35 billion euro investment in that area. What are the main challenges there?
Well, naval operations are inherently complex, right? You've got these ships with incredibly sophisticated systems on board, and then you've got the whole challenge of coordinating actions between multiple vessels. And then on top of that, you have these rare but critical emergency scenarios that are really hard to train for in real life. Think about like a fire on board or a major system malfunction.
Yeah, those are high-stakes situations where you really need to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So how does EON's approach address those challenges?
Well, first, they're talking about using photorealistic digital twins of naval vessels. So again, it's like having a virtual copy of the real thing that you can interact with. And they're also proposing to create simulations of these rare emergency scenarios so that crews can practice responding to them in a safe environment. And of course, they're also talking about multi-ship tactical training exercises in these virtual maritime environments.
So basically bringing all the elements of naval operations together in a virtual space where people can train and practice without any real-world risks.
Right. And they give a specific example of how this might work for submarine crews, saying that they could potentially achieve combat certification much faster with better performance and fewer errors during critical operations.
Okay, so we've covered air, land, and sea. What about the cyber domain? I mean, that's a huge area of concern these days.
Absolutely. And it's one where traditional training methods often fall short. It's just really difficult to simulate a realistic cyber attack in a live environment.
Yeah, you can't just unleash a virus on your actual network to see what happens. So what's EON's solution for cyber defense training?
They're proposing highly realistic attack simulation environments. So you're not just looking at lines of code on a screen. They're talking about using 3D visualization to show you exactly what's happening in a network during an attack, how the attack is spreading, and what the potential consequences are. So it's a much more immersive and engaging way to learn.
It's like you're actually inside the network watching the attack unfold in real time. That sounds pretty intense.
It is, and they're saying this approach leads to much faster and more accurate threat identification, better coordination between cyber response teams, and a really high level of engagement from the trainees. So it seems to be a pretty effective way to train people for the complexities of cyber defense.
Okay, so we've seen how EON's approach could be applied across all these different domains. But stepping back a bit, what are the key advantages of this kind of training compared to the traditional ways of doing things?
Well, for starters, you have the flexibility and scalability of virtual environments. You can create unlimited training scenarios, you can train people anywhere in the world, and you can easily scale up or down the training as needed. You just can't do that with live exercises, which are limited by physical space, resources, and logistics.
Right. And you also mentioned the safety factor, right? Being able to simulate dangerous situations without any real-world risks.
Exactly. And then there's the cost effectiveness. Virtual training can be significantly cheaper than live exercises, especially when you factor in things like travel, equipment, and personnel costs. And then, of course, you have the advantages of personalization, AI-driven adaptation, and the ability to standardize training across different countries.
So it's like taking all the best aspects of traditional training and amplifying them with technology.
That's a good way to put it. And ultimately, their vision is to transform European defense readiness by making training faster, more efficient, more effective, and more accessible to everyone.
And to help Europe achieve greater strategic autonomy in a world that's becoming increasingly complex and unpredictable. So, as we wrap up here, it's worth reflecting on the huge investment that Europe is making in modernizing its defense capabilities. How crucial do you think this parallel investment in innovative training and readiness programs will be in truly securing Europe's future? I mean, it's clear that you can have the most advanced weapon systems in the world, but without highly skilled personnel to operate them, they're just expensive pieces of metal.
You're absolutely right. Technology is only part of the equation. You need the human element to make it work. And that's where programs like EONs come in. They have the potential to bridge the skills gap and ensure that Europe has the personnel it needs to effectively utilize these new capabilities.
And as we move further into the 21st century, with all its challenges and uncertainties, that investment in human capital might be the most important one of all. It's something for all of us to think about.